Well, we've done it. We have beaten Corpse Party Book of Shadows. Overall, I really did enjoy myself playing the game. I probably like its predecessor a little more, though, and I'll give you reasons why. Now, this game had a fantastic soundtrack, just like the original Corpse Party, and the way it fleshed out some of the characters was really fantastic. Despite the kind of main idea being non-canon, the flashbacks I think were canon because they do directly lead up to events from the first Corpse Party. You'll notice that when you beat Book of Shadows, some of the stories say alternates, or some of the chapter title card things when you close it off say like alternate story, and some of them say flashback or something like that. So I think that some of the chapters were canon, like Miss Yui's flashback with Tsukasa, with the possible exception of, what's that on your arm? Same goes for Naomi and Seiko, like, oh, what's that in your neck? Because that indicates a time loop. But still, the basic events that happened before they went into Heavenly Host seem to be on the spot. Same goes for Kizami. The last regular chapter, took place with the Byakudan crew, and it shows how Kizami got started with his killing spree, as opposed to he just bugged out one day and started stabbing people. And after all that, it wasn't even his knife, it was Shimada's knife. That guy was such a dick. Now, regarding the weaknesses, though, again, not the prologue chapter, but the last regular chapter that you play, Chapter 7, Tooth, it was strange to end the main story on a Byakudan note. I mean, it really was great to see more of the Byakudan crew and get a better look at them and who they were. But it just felt weird not ending on a note with the Kisaragi crew. Now, again, I know that the last chapter you unlock does kind of do that, but it just felt weird to be like, Chapter 7, it all comes down to this. People running from Kizami. I'm like, oh, well, alright. And I would say probably the two big things that bothered me about the game were, number one, despite him being a General Bland character, the lack of Satoshi. The game opens with Naomi and Seiko, and then you see, oh, whoa, what's Satoshi doing? He looks glum. Like, because he knows what's coming, guys. Time loop's coming. He's prepared for this. And I was waiting to play as him, and it never happened. And no, I'm not counting the Miss Yui flashback. I mean, in Heavenly Host, you never really play as Satoshi, and you don't get to see how he might try adjusting the situation to better suit what it is he's trying to do. Do a better job talking to Naho, be quicker at achieving his goals. It just seemed weird that you never really got to see any of that go down. But I would say I guess there's two more things I have a problem with. It's just that they're tied together. A really big one is the wrong ends in general. Were they more creative than the original game? Oh yeah. Were they nastier? Way nastier. But, for the most part. But the problem was, you saw so many really nasty wrong ends, just one after another, that it got to the point where it was just like, well, let's see what creative ways they can kill the character this time. Whereas in the regular Corpse Party, one of the first wrong ends you get is being buried alive. And, like, that sucks, but it was, like, what I'm saying is all of the wrong ends weren't stabby-stabby. One of the wrong ends involved, Yoshiki cannibalizing Ayumi. That was freaking nuts. Like, there was only one wrong end kind of like that in, arguably two in Book of Shadows, that involved dealing with another person that's on your side. There was, Yoshiki in the torture room, and then you reveal that Ayumi's also there, and you're like, oh, geez, what are they going to do with this? And they cut off before you really get to see how far they would go. That was a really good technique. And also, Morishige, that was my favorite wrong ending in the game. Well, I would say maybe the most effective wrong ending in the game. My favorite one is still probably Morishige's wrong ending, where he sees someone getting horribly mutilated, and you're like, okay, well, that's standard wrong ending fare for this game by this point. We're on Chapter 5. But then Morishige likes it and gets in on it after the person's dead. That was pretty shocking. What's going to come of that? I don't know, and it's probably better that you don't find out. Same goes to Morishige's Chapter's End. Sachiko's like, hey, want to find the identity of that body you've been idolizing the whole time? And it turns out it was Mayu. I got confused. It had the same screenshot for Mitsuki as it did for Mayu, the way you could key into it was that it said the abdomen's been cut out, presumably not with tools, and that's how Mayu died. All the kids were kind of, but yeah. So Sachiko's like, "Hey, bet you'll never guess who the body is." And Morishite's like, "Well, what do you mean?" And then Sachiko's like, "You better have a good reaction to it, by the way." And then it just cuts off, chapter over. You know that's going to end horribly. That was a good technique. But my problem with the wrong endings is that so few of them are like that. So many of them are like, Sachiko caught you, or Hammerman caught you. Incredible pain in some part of your body. More incredible pain in some part of your body. The sheer agony you're going through. My God, when will I die? Now, would any of those endings have been super effective if they were, kind of the only ones of their kind? Oh, hell yeah. I mean, the Corpse Party 1 had Yuka getting stabbed in the eye, and it had Chapter 4's canonical ending where Sachiko is really going to town on the 3 children, which, turned them into ghosts. That was the most uncomfortable I've ever been playing a video game, ever. And, the reason it was so effective was because you didn't really have so many endings like that leading up to them. It was just, you're chilling out, some of these wrong endings are kind of bad, ooh, I would hate it if that happened to me, and all of a sudden, horrible violence, and you really kind of feel what these kids are going through. In Book of Shadows, most of the endings were that way. So, whatever one you see first, that's going to get you. And then, number 2, oh, we're still doing this? Jeez, it has more than the previous game. But then you realize every ending's kind of like that, so it just comes down to which part of my body is he going to crack with the hammer, or which part of my body is she going to cut with some pointed object. A freaking sickle, get out of here. The face melting thing with the fire, that was also really rough, but again, it was just, I'm going through a lot of pain, how am I supposed to deal with this, when will I finally die? And they kind of lost their impact once you realize that so many of them are just not even samey, but in method, but samey in terms of kind of how they're going about it. Just incredible violence, you feel really bad. So for that reason, you kind of seek out the wrong endings just to see how they're going to do it. It got to the point where some of the more effective wrong endings were, the last one we saw in Chapter 7, where it's you want to talk to the ghost? Yeah, I'll try it. Boo, got you. And you're like, how is this going to work out? It just cuts to red and you hear kids laughing. You're like, yup, pretty much. It actually got to the point where less was more after a while because you were so used to more that it became kind of, not ho-hum. It never hits comfortable levels, but you kind of have an idea of what to expect. This ties me into probably my main gripe with the game, which was, Chapter 1 played the way Chapter 1 played out. Everything's new. You have a hint of what situation you've already been in if you play the first game. So, oh, maybe I can change it. Oh, Wire? I don't remember Wire being in Naomi's chapter. Oh, God, what are they going to do with this? But then, after Seiko dies, Sachiko just straight up sucks the suspense out of the rest of the game. Most of the suspense. She sucks 90-95% of the suspense out of the game. When she says, oh, if you die the first time, you're dying the second time. And I'm going to do my best to change things for people who did not die the first time. She didn't even say that for Naomi. She said that for, actually for Yuka. Way the hell in Chapter 6. That was freaking weird. So, as far as Chapter 1 was concerned, my mindset was, oh, there's no suspense. Oh, maybe we could save these people this time? No, we can't. Anyone you saw die in the first game is going to die in this game. And you know what that means? Naomi's going to live. Yoshiki's going to live. Ayumi's going to live. Satoshi's going to live. Naomi, Yuka, Satoshi, Yoshiki, Ayumi. Yeah, 5 people. 5 people are walking away from this. I promise you that. This whole giant cast of characters, no, sorry, they're all dead. It's just how do they die? That's how it tied into my wrong endings. Just oh, are they going to die in a more horrible way? Let's find out how that goes. So, it really comes down to, there's no suspense. This whole cast of characters, they're dead anyway. The 5 of them are dead. The bunch of them are dead. These 5 are walking away. Now, Chapter 6, Sachiko says, "Oh, whoops, got your charm. Now I can change things for you." Actually, no, I might be wrong. I think she might have even said it for Yoshiki. Like, oh, I finally managed to change things. I got you too, or whatever. So it was only until a later chapter we realized, oh, maybe some of these 5 characters are gonna die. So at that point, it's like, okay, well, when we focus on these 5 characters, we'll see what happens. Now, Naomi, she walks away because she's in the prologue. The prologue was canon, so in the alternate universe, it might not even matter. But Naomi, we assume, walked away. Ayumi was a tricky one, actually, because you never saw her or Yoshiki after their chapters, so we figure they walked away. But in one of Morishige's wrong ends, he finds Ayumi's corpse in the body pool, or in the pit that he climbs down the rope to. So maybe Ayumi died? Jeez. Okay, you might have actually missed that. Not sure if Ayumi's canonically dead or not, within the alternate timeline, so... Yoshiki, we can assume he walked away. Satoshi, we never even see him go in the freaking school. And lastly is Yuka, who may or may not have died. I'm not sure if Sachiko killed her and brought her back, or almost killed her. Either way, it looks like Yuka actually did get a bad end. But that's in Chapter 6 of 7. And Chapter 7 is the Byakudan crew, so you're all dead, straight up. So you're just like, how are they going to die? See what happens. But I do love watching Kizami, though. That guy's a treasure. Like, that's kind of what it came down to. That's why I thought that the first game was a little better, because you had no idea what was going to happen. Now, I know that Book of Shadows played on the idea that you had an idea of what was going to happen, so let's see if you get these little connections they make. But as far as character deaths were concerned, there wasn't much to be afraid of. You're just like, well, you're dead. I don't know who you are, therefore you're dead, because my characters didn't find you in the first game, or something like that. Although it was kind of interesting to see what was going on with people that you only knew from their name tags in the first game, like Naori and Chihaya. That was kind of amusing. Now, as far as the prologue chapter at the end, now, like, again, I said that the alternate timeline chapters didn't really do much for me, because they were pretty much going to play out the way they played out, only with worse deaths, with the possible exception of Ayumi and Yuka. But as far as the flashbacks were concerned, it was great to get more insight into characters you didn't see too much into earlier, like Miss Yui, and really a lot of the Byakudan crew. That was kind of nice. And also, the prologue chapters really did it for me. I mean, you had the opening scene with Naomi's, like, having therapy or whatever. The whole prologue chapter's existence kind of felt a little weird to me, because it was like, alright, thanks for playing Book of Shadows. Now, you know it was an alternate timeline, so none of that stuff really mattered. So let's give you one chapter where it's new stuff that takes place after, where things do matter. So I was like, alright. Now, as it turns out, that chapter was, was short, but it was actually really cool. You only have Naomi and Ayumi, but they do confirm that the 5 people who survived the first game survived. So, forget alternate timeline, Yuka's alright, Ayumi's alright. Now, we're only focusing on Naomi and Ayumi, which amuses me, because maybe the other characters will get a hold of their whereabouts. Speaking of which, Ayumi's sister Hinue, that sucked. I really liked her. Like, she didn't see much of her, but I really liked her. And her head explodes for seemingly no reason. What the hell? That sucked. I mean, what a shocking way to do an ending. But regarding Naomi and Ayumi, their stories were pretty cool, going into Sachiko's house, and my god, the evil miasma here is way worse than Heavenly Host. Jesus. So they go in there, they find the Book of Shadows. There was one thing that really pissed me off. Using the Book of Shadows. Excuse me? I mean, what the hell are you doing? Not Naomi. Ayumi is the best bet you have in terms of magical ability. And she's not very good, because she's, a little kid who's kind of getting the hang of it. Like, her best stuff is, I sense a presence. That's better than Naomi can do, but you're not up for casting spells, Ayumi. I'm sorry. Speaking of which, number 1, do not be screwing with the laws of nature. Have you not played Shadow of the Colossus? You are not meant to tamper with life and death. Don't. Not to mention, they weren't even tampering with life and death. It's not like, oh no, Mayu died, let's bring her back to life. Mayu got retconned. She's not supposed to be there. Your picture of her had her with that blackened circle over her face. So Magic's like, alright, fine, here's the girl from your picture. No fate. That freaking sucked. And again, she didn't die. She's gone from continuity. That I really wouldn't have done that with that spell. Like that, no. And but reason number one, even if you weren't thinking about that, reason number one, you should not be casting that spell. Remember Sachiko Ever After? The whole plot of the game? You know, Sachiko Onigashimasu times however many people you have plus one for Sachiko. That is the easiest spell in the world to cast. Take a doll, tear it up into equal pieces with how many people you have. Say Sachiko Onigashimasu for however many people you have plus one. That's the spell. That's the spell. What happens if you say Sachiko Onigashimasu one fewer time? What if you mess up the count by one? You get sucked into Death Dimension forever. And that's with a children's magic trick. And then Ayumi's like, well, okay, I know I did that, I know I messed it up, and I know I got most of our friends killed. And I know that other people did it and got most of their friends killed. In fact, all of their friends killed. So Ayumi's like, hey, look, it's the Book of Shadows, the single most dangerous magical thing in the world. Now, I know how dangerous spells are when I make up the prop myself and cut a doll out of paper. What if I use the freaking Book of Shadows? Well, let me think about it. If I mess up the count for a spell that's easy to chant, we get sucked into Heavenly Host. What if I cast a spell that takes hours to cast, requires various props, blood from the casters. Oh, and by the way, I can't even pronounce right because it's in French and runes. And the best I can do is kind of sort of fudge the words with Japanese transliteration. Yeah, that'll go freaking perfectly. I see no problem with this. This isn't even like, oh, I cast it wrong. If only I'd read the instructions right. This is so much opportunity to mess up, even if you think you're doing it right. Hours to cast. Oh, you'll be fine. Oh, and by the way, let's continue to cast a spell within Sachiko's house with the evil miasma. Don't worry, guys. Nothing to worry about. Nothing at freaking all. What? Oh my god. At least take it out and give it to your sister, who I still wouldn't trust it with because she's not a top-tier witch. She's just better than you are. Take the book, and I don't even know if I'd burn the book, because I would probably do bad things too. Just, I don't know, leave the damn book. Like, just don't do this. And by the way, what were they planning to do? They wanted to resurrect who? Mayu, Seiko, Miss Yui, Morishige. There were 9 to start with, right? So 4 of them. So, multiple hours to cast a spell once. Were you going to do that times 4? You're just going to spend literally a day in Sachiko's house just casting the spells and getting out of breath and you can go drink a water or something? I'm getting a little dry in the throat just doing this. And it's like casting a spell in another language and waving my hands around and cutting my palm. And Jesus! And that said, though, when they did cast a spell, the effects really were rather shocking. I thought it would be like Monkey's Paw, where it's like you hear a knock on the door, it's like, don't answer that, man, and it just ends. But man, Mayu had that really bad. That was uncomfortable to watch. And then she broke up where the runes were. That sucked. When it started happening to Ayumi too, I'm like, oh no. And the book's like laughing and coming alive. I'm like, ah! That just kept getting worse and worse. It's like, make it stop, for the love of God. Who the hell knows how Hinoe found them in such a, well, I don't know about timely manner. I mean, it took hours for them to do all this, so maybe she worked her way up there. But she certainly seems to know what she's doing in terms of at least minor spell casting. Too bad her head exploded for no freaking reason. That really kind of bothered me, actually. But still, what happened to Mayu? That was really that was pretty rough. All I can say though is, what if they did Seiko first? Can you imagine Naomi's reaction? I mean, like, you could argue that she had a guilt trip getting Seiko killed because she had the darkening, but with this, she would have straight up, like, murdered Seiko. Like, I guess the one thing, I guess probably the one thing you could say they did as a favor to Mayu is she's no longer a ghost feeling pain for eternity in Heavenly Host. At least they sucked her out of that, and she died a mortal's death, which still sucked, but at least she's not in Heavenly Host. Maybe go ahead and cast the spells again just to get your friends the hell out of there. Well, actually, if Mayu's out here, even if her face is blacked out, Do you think people remember her now? She remembered Morishige? Kind of. I don't know if she was an automaton or what. But overall, despite, like, back to reality here, despite liking the first game more, I really did have fun with this one. And the visual novel aspect of it took away from some of the gameplay, but I mean, that's how visual novels work. So it took away from some of the gameplay, but it really got you really more into the story. Corpse Party, the original, seems to almost want to be a visual novel, because they went into those really long extended dialogue sequences. So Book of Shadows was like, let's just make it mostly that. We're story-based, let's do story stuff. So that was kind of cool. And really, I did not have high hopes for Xseed bringing this over, because Corpse Party by itself kind of has a cult following, but Americans are not really big on visual novels, so I mean, you don't really see many of those around, so I'm really impressed that they managed to bring it over and gave us more of a taste of what Corpse Party had to offer. Speaking of which, thank God they did, because they teased a sequel. Look, it looks like a canonical sequel, too, because we're not in the alternate timeline anymore. Blood Drive? Oh, I gotta see this. I gotta see this. So now there's three. So now there's three Corpse Party games to look forward to. Blood Drive, the really wacky comical spin-off, like, it's called something like Sachiko's Birthday Party. It's goofy. Figure that out. And Corpse Party 2, Dead Patient. It apparently has nothing to do with Corpse Party 1, which is why it's 2, and not like 1A, 1B, like we're doing here. All I can say about Dead Patient is that it takes place in a hospital, so, have fun imagining what that means. So I really hope Xseed continues to be as awesome as it has been. Not only did it bring over these games and all sorts of other awesome games, but the translation job they did on Corpse Party was just amazing. So much flavorful text. I said that multiple times in the playthrough itself. It was freaking excellent. Thank you, Xseed, for bringing this stuff over. Please bring over the next Corpse Parties. I gotta see where this goes. And, oh man, so this game was a lot of fun to play. Thank all of you for watching, and thank you to MeGamer for the awesome title card, and thank you to Mr. Ryu45 for lending me your PSP one more time. Making this game possible, freaking awesome. I really had a lot of fun with this game, even though they did kind of go into a lot of just going too far territory with the wrong ends. But hey, they sure were creative. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching as much as I enjoyed playing. For the next game I do, I'm thinking horror. If I can pull off, I'll see if the game's buggy or not. If I can pull the game off, it's probably something you haven't heard of, but it'll be freaking glorious. We'll see what happens in my next status update. Until next time, everyone.
Book of Shadows.